Hi everybody, welcome to week one of Beginning Guitar. I'm Mr. Songer, and today we are going to be playing out of your red guitar school book, starting on pages 2 and 3. So if you want to open that up to pages 2 and 3, we're going to be going through the basics of playing guitar today. And on some of these things I talk about, I'm going to put up on the screen the pages on the book, and on other pages I'm just going to summarize them for you. It is helpful if you have the book there with you so I can refer to a couple things. So pages 2 and 3 are just talking about the different parts of the guitar and kinds of guitars. The guitar is like a little person. It's got the head up here, and then it's got a neck, and then it's got the body. Okay, it's actually like a little giraffe because it has a really long neck. Okay, on the head there are what are called, I'm going to take my capo off here for a second. These are called the tuning pegs, and we're going to talk about tuning in just a little bit. On your neck, you have two very important parts. You have the 6 strings, and we number the strings from the thinnest string up to the thickest string. So the thinnest string is, we number the 1st string, 2nd string, 3rd string, 4th, 5th, 6th. And then the frets are the pieces of metal that go underneath the strings. And there are about 20 to 25 frets on your guitar. And we number the frets as well, starting with this one right here. This is the 1st fret, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, and so on. Okay. This, by the way, is called the nut of the guitar that divides the head from the neck. And you'll also notice that you have some dots either right on the front of the neck, or sometimes they are on the side. If you can kind of see those little dots in there, like right there and right there. Sometimes you have both, like this guitar has both. The dots are on your odd number frets, starting with either right above 3 or 5. My guitar starts on 5. And then you can see it's not right above 7, right above 9. And then you get down to the double dots, that's right above your 12th fret. And then they go back to the odds, 15 and 17. And they do that, so if I were to say, hey, press down your 15th fret, you don't have to sit here and be like 1, 2, 3, 4. You can be like, oh, the double dots are 12, and then the next odd dot, that would be 15. So it's a lot easier to find that way. And then on the body of your guitar, you have a couple things. The strings come to an end at what's called the bridge. You have your sound hole right here. And then this is your pick guards, that you don't chip your guitar when you're playing with your pick. Okay. So those are the parts of the guitar. On page 3, it talks about the electric guitar and the acoustic guitar. Now, basically, if you're learning on acoustic guitar, you are basically learning electric guitar as well, and vice versa. If you're learning how to play electric right now, you're also learning the skills to play acoustic. The chords, the strumming, the pressing down the strings, all that stuff is pretty much the same on both instruments. I'm actually playing on an acoustic electric guitar, which means that I have a plug-in here where I can plug in to an amp to make my acoustic guitar louder. And I can also put effects on it like you would an electric guitar too, although that's kind of not very common. And if you're playing on an electric guitar, instead of a sound hole, your instrument is solid instead of hollow. So you just have these little strips of metal underneath the strings called pickups. And that picks up the vibration of the strings and then sends it into your amp. So the reason that you need an amp for an electric guitar is because it's not hollow. Acoustic guitars are hollow, so the vibrations come out the sound hole, and you don't need to plug it into an amp unless you're playing with a lot of electric instruments in a band. Okay. If you turn to pages 4 and 5, page 4 talks about holding the guitar. For the most part, and you can't see this because you can't see me sitting right now, but my guitar, the nook right here, this curvature on the bottom of the guitar, is on my right leg. Okay, you can put it on your left leg. Sometimes classical guitar players will play like that. It gives them a little more flexibility with their left hand. But for the most part, most of you will defer to putting it on your right leg. And if you also want to make sure when you're holding your guitar that the face of the guitar is pointing out and that it doesn't start sliding up like this, and so it's like sitting on your lap with the face of the guitar pointing towards the ceiling. You want it to point out, okay? It can rest against your stomach a little bit, but you just don't want it like totally like tilting up like that, all right? And if you're standing up, you'll need a strap on your guitar, and some of you may have a strap. During lessons with me, we will not be standing up, so you don't need to worry about it. Sometimes when you have a strap, you put it on even when you're sitting down just to get it out of the way. So, or you can just tuck it behind your guitar on your lap, or just take it off, and that works too. Page 5 talks about tuning the guitar, and this is one of the most challenging things in this first lesson. In fact, I don't like to spend a lot of time on it. I like to spend more time on it after we've learned a little bit about playing chords and knowing where the notes are. But I will tell you just a few quick things to get you going on it. My number one piece of advice too is to get what's called a tuner, and a tuner or a tuner app. And a tuner tells you what notes you're playing on each one of your strings. And if you look at page 5, there is where it says tuning to a piano, it says what each string should be, what letter name it should be. So 6th string should be E, 5th string is A, 4th string D, 3rd string G, 2nd string B, and 1st string a high E. Okay. Well, you use a tuner, or I'm just going to pull up on my phone right here, my tuner app, so I can show you what I'm talking about. Way at the bottom, I'm trying to get this so it's not too blurry. I'm having a hard time getting it to show up. But there's an app called Tuner Lite. It's free. And if I click on Tuner Lite, you'll see there is a little, I'm struggling here. It's actually picking me up talking right now, and that's why you see all these letters changing. There's a little needle that goes back and forth, and you want that needle to be straight up and down on 0 on the note it's supposed to be. So if you're doing your E string, you want it to say an E, and you want that needle to be up and down. Now, if that needle is too far to the right, it means you need to, you're sharp, and you need to loosen the string. And if that needle is too far to the left, it means you're flat, and you need to tighten that string. And you usually don't have to turn it much unless it hasn't been tuned in like forever. So, for example, I'm going to take out my tuner here, and I'm going to play an E. And I know you can't see my tuner right now, but I'm going to play my low E string. And it says I'm a little sharp, so I'm going to follow my E string back to my tuning peg that it's attached to, which is this one right here. And because it's sharp, I want to loosen it. I want to make it lower. And to loosen it, I'm going to turn it clockwise just a little bit. And again, I didn't turn it much. And I went a little too far, so I'm going to bring it back. And there, I about got it. But I would do this for each one of my 6 strings on my guitar. And if you're not sure like which way to turn it, it's kind of like a screwdriver. You know, when you're putting a screw into the wall with a screwdriver, it gets a little harder to turn when you're tightening, and it gets a little easier to turn when you're loosening. So that's my best advice. On an acoustic guitar, there's another way to say it. Those 3 tuning pegs on the top, to make them, to tighten, you want to go counterclockwise, and to loosen, you want to go clockwise. And then the 3 on the bottom, it's the opposite. So that's what I mean. It's a little tricky to learn all that. There's other ways there's other tuners. You can actually buy tuners. There's little tuners called snark tuners that you can attach to your guitar. Those are super cool. There's specific guitar tuning apps that you can get. And then there's other ways to tune the guitar too. If you have a good ear and you understand notes, you can go up to a piano and play an E and then use your ear to tune the guitar. There's another way that once you have the low E string tuned, there's a method you can use. But those, like I said, those are things we're going to get into later. So, but if you need me to tune your guitar, just let me know and I'll help with that. Okay, let's turn to page 6. And page 6 deals with reading music. And if you know how to read music, that's great. That's going to help you in this class. If you don't worry, because I'm going to help you with that. I'm going to say one thing on page 6 that is really for people that know how to read music so far, and that is in guitar lingo. When you are playing chords, instead of quarter notes having the little oval shape with a stem, they have a little slash with a stem. So it's just a slash instead of an oval. And then for half notes and dotted half notes and whole notes, instead of the oval again, they use diamonds. So a diamond with a stem would be a half note, a 2-beat chord. And they do this because you're playing multiple notes at once. So those slashes and diamonds represent a chord where you're strumming many strings at once, as opposed to a single note with the ovals. That would be a regular note. Okay, the definition of a chord, by the way, are 2 or more notes played at the same time. And we do that a lot on guitar. Okay, page 7. And I'm going to put page 7 up on the screen here for you. I'm going to cover some basic things here. I'm not going to go through everything, but there's one in particular I really want to spend some time on here today. So first of all, you'll notice that there's the notation, and it has the letter names. You have the lines, and there's a little acronym that we learned called Every Good Boy Does Fine, and that just means the bottom line is E, next line up is G, then B, then D, then F. And then the spaces spell face, F-A-C-E. And we're going to spend some time, probably in our third week of our lessons, working on that concept. I'm not going to do any more with that today. Right next to that, there are these things called frames, and this is the one I am going to spend a little time on today. You'll notice on a frame, there are 6 lines going down, and then 4 lines going across. Those 6 lines going down represent the strings on your guitar, and the line furthest to the left is your 6th string, E, and then it goes over to your 1st string. The 4 lines across, the top line is the nut of the guitar, and the next 3 lines are the frets, 1st fret, 2nd fret, and 3rd fret. And then you'll notice there are numbers in black circles. That's telling you which finger to put on which string and on which fret. So on this particular chord, which we're actually not going to play yet, this is a little further down the road, but just to explain further how to read these frames, because this is the way we learn how to play chords. You'll notice there's a 1 in a black circle on the 2nd string, right above the 1st fret. So you would put your 1st finger on the 2nd string, 1st fret. And one more thing to keep in mind, actually 2 more things to keep in mind on frames. On guitar, your 1st finger is your pointer finger. If you've learned how to play piano before, that's a little bit different than how we number fingers on the for piano. So your index finger or pointer finger is finger number 1. Your middle finger is finger number 2. Your ring finger is number 3, and your pinky is number 4. And we rarely press down strings with our thumb on guitar. The last thing I want to point out is if you have a line, like on this particular chord, the 6th string, that's dashed and has an X above it, that means that you do not strum that string. So on this particular chord, you would strum all the strings except the 6th string. Okay? So that's what that means on a frame. We're going to be learning a couple chords that are a little bit easier than this one at the end of this lesson today. The last thing I'll point out very quickly on this page is tablature, and this is another way to read guitar music, usually used to read single notes. And so you'll notice there's 6 lines going across, and then you'll notice it says 1st string, 2nd string, 3rd string, on down to 6th string. What's weird about it is it's upside down visually from how you look at your guitar. When you're holding your guitar, the 1st string is on the bottom, but when they write tablature, the 1st string is on top. And they do that because the higher the notes, the higher it is physically on the tablature. Even though when you play guitar, the higher notes are on the lower strings. Hopefully that makes sense. So if you see the first number there is a 0 on the 1st string, that means that you would play the 1st string, and only the 1st string, open with no frets down. The next 2 notes are 3 and 1 on the 2nd string. So 3 would mean press down the 3rd string on your 2nd fret, 3rd fret on your 2nd string, my bad, and just play that 2nd string all by itself. And then 1st fret on your 2nd string. And the last one is a 0 on your 3rd string, which would mean 3rd string with no frets down. Excuse me. Cool. So that's how we read music on guitar. Okay, I'm going to take the screen down and come back to you. Hi, good to see you. Page 8 and 9. Last 2 pages before we actually play some music. On page 8, it talks about strumming. Strumming is fairly basic in that we put our thumb and 1st finger together, and you are going to strum over the sound hole, or an electric guitar over the pickups. And it really is that simple. It's not really rocket science. It's your 1st fingernail that's going to strum through the strings. You can use your thumb too, but you'll notice it's darker and more mellow. And there's a time and a place for that, but usually we just strum like that. Man, excuse me. And then we use picks on guitars. Sometimes I like it when beginners don't start with picks because you develop better technique and you don't rely on the pick to give yourself a big sound. I'll leave that kind of up to you. But when you play with a pick, make sure you grab it and again, put it between your 1st finger and your thumb. Make sure that you grab it not too high. You don't want to play like this you get a thin sound. The pick can fall out of your hands, and even worse, into your guitar. So get a good grip on it, you know, right in the middle of it there. Just a little bit of the tip poking out down below. And again, just strum right over that sound. Okay. Let's talk about the left hand. I got 4 things. This is page 9, by the way. I got 4 things I want to teach you about the left hand. Very important things. First thing, when you press down a string, press down really hard. So let's say you're taking your first finger and you're pressing down the first string, first fret. I want to smush that string down. I want to give it everything I got, so that when you pick it up and you look at you should see the indentation of that string in your finger. I think you can see that. Okay? And yeah, it will hurt a little bit when you first start, and you may only be able to play for a few minutes before your fingers get pretty raw. You know, don't push it too much. You know, I know you want to play and get better, and you know, maybe practice in short increments multiple times a day and week when you first start, instead of trying to play like an hour straight, because you need to build up those calluses. But you do need to press down hard, because if you don't press down hard, this is what the string sounds like. If you're like, I can't even hear what you're doing, that's because I'm not pressing down hard enough. This is how it should sound. But if I'm not pressing down hard enough, you won't get a good sound. Second thing, you need to bend your knuckles, bend your fingers. If you play piano, same kind of deal. We do that because we need to build bridges over the string. So let's say you're playing same fret, first fret, but we're going to do second string this time. I need to build a bridge over that first string. I can't touch that first string too, because if I touch it, then once again I'm going to get that sound. So I got to build that bridge over that string. So not only am I getting a good sound on my second string, which I'm pressing down, but my first string sounds good too. Okay, so push down hard, bend your knuckles. Third thing is, let's go back to first fret, first string. When I say first fret, or any fret, I don't mean right on top of it. I mean like just a little bit behind it. Like I like to say, as close as you can get to it without touching it. Technically, anywhere in here is first fret. Anywhere in here is second fret. But if I'm far back from the fret, it's hard to press down. It's harder to press down. It's harder to get a good sound. So the closer you can get, the better. But again, if you're right on top of it, check it out. Not a great sound. Right behind it, good. If I get too far back, I got to really press, because if I don't press, I'm going to get that. So it's much easier if you're really close. Okay, and then the last thing, and this won't affect a lot of you, but it might affect some of you greatly. You have to have short fingernails. If you don't have short fingernails, you're going to have the nail hit the wood before the string gets down to the fret, and again, you're going to get this kind of sound instead of the sound you want. So press down hard, bend your knuckles, get close to the fret but not right on top of it, short fingernails. Turn to page 10. We're going to play some music. I'm going to put the music back on the screen for you. And this is the last page we're going to do today, and we're actually going to do a couple songs. So we have 2 chords on this page. We have the G7 and the C chord. And you'll see there's 2 frames, and there's even pictures to show you how to do it, which is really nice actually. The G7 chord, you're going to press down your first finger on your first fret. And then again, notice how the 4th, 5th, and 6th strings all have X's and they're dashed, so you're not going to strum 4th, 5th, and 6th string. You're only going to strum the bottom 3. And that's a G7 chord. And then for the C chord, if you just move that first finger over to second string, again, make that bridge so you don't touch the first string, just the second string. And again, you just strum the bottom 3, those other 3 have X's. There's your C chord. Look down at number 3. Number 3 is a very common way you see music. You see those slash quarter notes, and you see a C above the first one. And there's a total of 8 slash quarter notes before you get to the rest. The rest is that little square that means you rest for 4 beats and you don't play anything. So they don't have to put a C above each one. They just put a C above the first one, which means keep doing C until you see a different chord, and you'll see after the rest it switches to G7. So you're going to do C 8 times like this. And notice I'm keeping a steady tempo. I'm not, I could go fast if I want. Or I could go slower. What you don't want to do is you don't want to go slow, then fast, and you don't want to do this. You don't want to be changing tempos. You want to get really good at playing at a steady tempo because that's really important on any instrument that you learn. Okay, then you rest for 4 beats, and then you go to G7, and you do that 8 more times like this. And there you go. You just played your first song. I know it's not the most exciting song, but hopefully you were able to do it to a relatively good accuracy level. Okay, last thing we're going to do is the song Mary Ann. Now Mary Ann looks different because this is what we call a lead sheet. And you'll notice there are words and there are notes. Now those words and notes are for the singer. The singer is in charge of doing that. Sometimes you are the singer and the guitar player. I'm not going to teach you how to do that right now. We're just going to focus on guitar. So you are going to ignore the words. You're going to ignore the notes. What you're going to pay attention to is up above the measures, there are C's and G7s. Now some of you might be like, I don't know how to read music. What do you mean by a measure? Well, a measure is that line that goes up and down that goes across the 5 lines on the staff. So you'll notice on that first line of music, there's 3 lines of music, there are 5 measures, okay? And in each measure, you're going to strum the chord that you've been given 4 times. And you might notice at the beginning it has little slashes for the C chord for the first 2 measures. That's just saying you're going to strum 4 times in each measure. So the C chord lasts for 2 measures, so you're going to strum a total of 8 times. Sorry, there's a little math involved. You have to multiply the number of measures by 4 to get the number of times you strum it. So 2 measures, 4 strums per measures, 2 times 4 is 8. Well, then it switches to G7 chord. And the G7 chord lasts for 1, 2, 3, 4 measures. 4 times 4, you're going to strum it 16 times. And then you're going to go back to C 16 times, back to G7 16 times, and then you end on 2 measures on C, which will be a total of 8 times. So it'll sound like this. Switch. 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 And you're done. Okay, I'm going to turn the, come back to me again. Woo! All right, sweet. 2 more things before we end here today. Switching between chords. So the hardest thing I think in this class, harder than even tuning, is going back and forth between chords. You know, being able to do what I'm doing right now really quick, okay? That takes some practice. One of my first guitar teachers taught me, he said, when you watch TV, or you're watching YouTube, watching a movie, whatever, you should take your guitar out. And for a few minutes while you're watching that show or that movie or that game or whatever you're watching, just don't even strum. Just do this. G7, C, G7, C, back and forth. And you know, I remember when he taught me to do that, and I was kind of like, oh yeah, that's cool. That means I can watch TV and it's not a waste of time. But I didn't realize probably the number 1 reason he told me to do it while watching TV was so that I don't watch my finger. So that I'm watching TV and I'm doing this without looking. Because if you can do this without looking, that's what your goal is. So at first you're going to be like, okay, back and forth. But eventually, hopefully you can look away and you can get faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. So yeah. So that's a great tip. And these 2 chords, not that hard. You should be able to get back and forth between them pretty quickly. Look at page 11. D and A7, harder chords, and that's where we're going to stop today. But if you want to start taking a look at those and start trying to figure those out, those 2 we're going to spend a lot of time on in week 2. Thanks for watching.